Perhaps what I am is not as important as what I can offer you in exchange for coming.
Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. Half Life Alyx is a VR game. A game made from the top down for VR. The level design, props, mechanics, enemies, everything about it was thoroughly playtested by Valve to make sure it feels good in VR. More than 5 years later, VR has kinda stagnated and modders have stepped up to keep the medium alive. Flat to VR conversions like the Resident Evil VR ports have been the only thing holding my interest in the platform. Instead of praying a AAA developer will take a massive monetary risk on a fully fledged VR port, it makes more sense to port AAA games into VR. The modders do all the hard work getting these games to work in VR, and people like me get to reap all the benefits. On the flip side, we have VR games like Half Life Alyx that are so good that it seems almost criminal that such a large demographic of PC gamers will miss out on it because they don't have the hardware or the headwear to run them. This is where the geniuses behind Half Life Alyx's No VR mod come into play. When I saw a team of talented modders had adapted a VR title for flat-screen gamers, I couldn't help but ask myself, can you beat Half Life Alyx without VR? Right from the start, this conversion feels familiar to anyone who's played Source games, which I'd estimate to be 110% of PC gamers. Grabbing and throwing objects feels like other Source games, as do most of the other aspects of this port, and as I progressed through the intro of Alyx, I knew I was in good hands. One quick note I feel we should throw out there before we continue. I recorded the footage for this video, a while ago. Then I got a good old 8 to 5 job, hated it, and never found the time for YouTube. But now I'm back, and the brighter bulbs among you might be able to figure out why. Anyway, the rest of the intro went about as you'd expect. I enjoyed the novelty of walking around an environment I'd ogled through the lenses of my VR headset for years like I would any other PC game, and got my hands on the first weapon of the run. Now's a good time to mention that I have the HUD disabled for this playthrough for your sake. But normally you'd have a crosshair, health bar, and other bits and bobs that make this conversion feel like a real game. The scale of the quarantine zone translated surprisingly well to flat screen, and the first multi-tool puzzle demonstrated the work that the modders had to undergo to translate VR mechanics to a mouse and keyboard. Health stations suffer from the conversion. Losing the phantom sense of watching your hand be pricked by dirty alien needles was disappointing. Looting and interacting with combine caches and consoles felt less exciting out of VR, but I was pleased to see Valve's gorgeous animations still had the potential to wow without the aid of a third dimension. I was able to complete the first spinny flesh wheel puzzle without a hitch, and got up close and personal with an alien phallus.
Alright, here we go.
My run-in with the first zombie of the run was a tad anticlimactic, but the iconic metro environment that followed was still deliciously atmospheric, if not less intimidating. I left the HUD on for this next bit, so you guys could see what it looks like normally and formed my first critical opinion of the conversion. With mouse and keyboard, the early levels feel a bit sparse and dull and maybe even boring. Combat is a breeze, even on higher difficulties, and the lumbering gait of the zombies disappoint when compared to their predecessors. Those critiques quickly fled my mind when I encountered the first living headcrabs of the run. Watching their cute little dance and subsequent leaps flooded my cortisol-whipped brain with some much-needed serotonin. In VR, headcrabs had already been less of a threat in Alyx than in previous Half-Life entries, but I still wasn't prepared for how genuinely adorable and unthreatening they were with this mod. You do lose the ability to catch and fondle their vascular little bodies in the flat screen conversion, which is a damn shame. I would argue that that experience alone is worth the $100 you need for a used Quest 2, but that's just me. Unlike in my first playthrough, I was prepared for Gary's despicable treatment of headcrabs, but something about watching them play out on a screen instead of in front of my eyes in 3D added a disturbing documentary-like sensation that set my teeth on edge. After saving a headcrab from getting all pruny, I took a moment to admire Valve's animation work that still puts modern AAA games to shame half a decade later. Too bad for Valve, their flashy animations and particle simulations weren't enough to make me hate Gary less. Seeing armored headcrabs alive and kicking in all their bumbling glory was like salve on a burn. These little guys are my favorite headcrab variant, and if you think different, you're wrong and stupid and get away from my channel. Corralling these spiky babies was a bit of a pain in the ass, made worse by a blunder. No! But what really shook me was 3 Zombies' take on the cask of Amontillado. Amontillado? Jesus! Normally, these guys don't make an appearance until you reload the shotgun. They just beat on the walls like a lesbian beats on her domestic partner. The no VR mod might have broken the scripting for the segment, but it didn't really matter. As I progressed, I dealt with the swelling ranks of headcrab hang-ons, scratched an itch for an armored crab, kneecapped a sleeping construction worker, and got my 2D mitts on the flashlight. One of my favorite changes this mod makes over the VR version is the ability to toggle the flashlight on and off at any time, not just in the dark sections. I didn't have much time to appreciate the change as I tried to continue through the headcrab-infested halls, and I started to feel like one of those dog moms who runs from their puppies when she needs a moment to herself. I soldiered on, doing my best impersonation of a Canadian doctor who heard an old person had a headache. I found the last bit of resin I'd need to afford the laser sight and conveniently stumbled on a weapon upgrade station. Without the laser, the pistol has a noticeable bloom that makes ranged fights not great. With the laser, the pistol becomes, well, a laser. In fact, if you have the pro-elite aim of a grizzled FPS veteran like me, firefights in this conversion wear their VR-centric balance on their sleeve. The next flesh cylinder puzzle was a breeze. I totally didn't break anything, and for no particular reason at all, I wondered whatever came of those train derailments in Ohio a while back. Eli's Misty Plunge was less intense out of VR, but my hatred for Gary proved to be platform agnostic. Me and a hangdangle got a bit tipsy on some potato juice, and I stumbled on a bit of copacetic copulation. Jiggle peeking was never on the list of things I thought I'd do in Half Life Alyx, but it proved effective against the first Bubba Combine as I split his wig with some buckshot. I hate to harp on the AI, because in VR they can be genuinely intimidating when they flank or work together to root you out, but playing this mod made me question their intelligence at times. I'm ashamed to admit it took me until my first wide open area to try bunny hopping, a cornerstone of Source Engine games. Bunny hopping with this mod didn't feel as intuitive as Portal or Half-Life's, but I was still pleased to find that it does in fact exist. Moving on, I found myself in my favorite environment in the entire game. After putting a headcrab back in the closet,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
I was pleased to see that the no VR devs had taken the time to get the little things right. I grabbed me a handful of alien orb, chucked it at an invisible tentacle, and went mano-a-mano with the first Sparky of the game. I handled him with ease.
Wow. What do I do?
And found a neat little flesh battery that fit perfectly in a Combine console. The next Sparky I encountered inserted himself into a corpse, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, and I got jump scared by a silly fella. For whatever reason, managing the harem of living headcrabs I left in my wake in VR never felt as time-consuming as it did with this conversion. But whenever I lost my patience, one of them would do something like this, and I'd get over it. Sprinting through a nest of poison headcrabs loses some of its oomph out of VR, but my hatred for their gangly, hairy bodies was still intact.
Oh man.
Further in the hotel, 2 Sparkies fled from my black ball, so I Kali modded their shit. I almost lost my cool when I mistook a Vortigaunt for Gary, but I was able to stop myself before anyone got hurt. The next firefight was the first that really showed the potential of Valve's AI for future Half-Life entries. If there were maybe twice if not thrice the amount of Combine in this fight, it would have been the most Half-Life 2-esque encounter so far. Though Alyx was a teenage girl when she went through the events of this game, so it makes sense that she wouldn't face quite as many enemies as Gordon Freeman. Speaking of enemies, the first tripwire I encountered proved to be a much more formidable foe than anything the Combine had thrown my way. If the difficulty of this playthrough could be summarized in one sentence, it would be, I am dumb, but my enemies are dumber. After Eli expressed his distaste for the word Russell,
"Oh, your dad's back!"
Oh, thank God.
Russell! God damn!
I took a moment to admire the serene scenery. And I shot a bird. A couple Combine took offense at my bird crime, but I made quick work of them. Then, this stupid window gave me a harder go of it than elite soldiers armed with alien technology. Moving on, I encountered a rare disappearing poisonous head crab. It was there 1 minute, and gone the next. Truly mysterious. For the first time in years, I prepared myself to face the scariest being in the entire Half-Life universe. This guy with a nail hat. Oh, and Jeff was here too, I guess. Facing Jeff for the first time in VR is unforgettable. Arguably one of the top 5 set pieces in all of gaming. Facing him with this mod, not so much. Watching him hurt my children with reckless hate, and watching one of my children waste perfectly good alcohol were the true horrors of this section. Everything else went swimmingly, and I did not panic when a hentai monster refused to let go of my brew.
Oh!
I lured Jeff into a magical box that reproduces the sound of childbirth, gawked at his farty meat pile, and dove down a tunnel roomier than your mom's mud flaps. Once I reached the zoo, I was struck with divine inspiration. I had a plan. I was going to befriend a vicious predator with tasty bones and companionship, much like my ancestors with the humble wolf. My plan was a success, and I sicked my savage attack crab on the first antlions that appeared. My attack crab, took a nap, and he followed me to a very important section of the game. In this part of the zoo, there is a docile zombie admiring a collection of children's drawings. In my first Can You Beat video, someone shared their story of how their father had worked for Valve during the development of Half-Life Alyx, and how their drawing had ended up on this board. I can't find that comment on my old video, but if by some miracle the algorithm sends this video your way, mystery person, please comment and let me know. Back to the zoo, I learned why flash photography was banned and sniped an explosive barrel. Then, this happened. I wasn't sure what was going on. Maybe there was something in the zoo's water supply, maybe it was a byproduct of the VR to flat screen port. Whatever was up, I moved on and continued to gather an impressive retinue of head crabs. What they lacked in brain power, they made up for in cuteness. I pumped 2 hot loads of lead into a Combine soldier and was transported back to my old college dorm room. After encountering an especially polite armored head crab, I decided to offer him a hat as a parting gift. When he refused it and tried to follow, the power of the hat proved too strong and would not allow him to stray. It took until this late in the game to find a level that felt more natural with this port's movement and shooting than it had in VR. I actually had to manage ammunition and utilize the environment to proceed. Fighting antlions was as repetitive as ever, but at least there were a ton of them. I had resin burning a hole in my pocket, so I went ahead and added an ugly scope to my Combine rifle to flex on the pores. I might have flexed too soon though, cause as I fought my way through the next section, I encountered 2 soldiers that decided to stunt on me for no good reason. The first guy kicked me, something I had never seen in my numerous previous playthroughs, and his fat friend finished the job. As I neared the end of the game, I couldn't help but wonder if Alyx had been released as a dual flat screen and VR title, would it have been more popular than Half-Life 2? I personally find the image of the vault to be as iconic as the Citadel, and I can't help but imagine an alternate timeline where millions of players were able to get their hands on a new entry in PC gaming's most iconic franchise. I think the image of the vault crashing to the earth should be just as synonymous with the series as the Citadel's destruction. Once inside, I fired the shotgun shell of untold chaos and woe, and got distracted by a headcrab doing a little jig. In my opinion, the following set piece suffered the most from the VR to flat screen conversion. The Strider's scale is breathtaking in VR, but it loses most of its wow factor when you no longer have to crane your neck to gawk up at it like a midget at an underboob convention. The section that followed was by far the most challenging to get through without a VR set. Typically, you can cheese these fights by hiding your body behind cover and abusing teleportation. Without those crutches, I died a handful of times I won't show for pride's sake. While most of the novelty of this set piece is lost outside of VR, the sound design and animation on display are still top of the line and worth experiencing regardless of medium. From this point on, I didn't expect any surprises. The final level of Alyx is my VR comfort food. I've used it to test every VR headset I've ever owned, and I show it to friends and family as a showcase of what the medium can do. I walk through it every once in a blue moon when I want to stare at pretty environments. I was prepared for the same old, going through the motions, guarding my heart against the inevitable loss of bread, until I encountered a welcome surprise. In a typical playthrough, this final section serves as a power trip, not unlike the final section of Half Life 2 when you receive the supercharged gravity gun. Alyx's gravity gloves allow you to grab these funny green balls and fry wave after wave of Combine like your Shamrock Sheev Palpatine. This mod goes down another route. And just like that, I answered the question so many people had surely asked when Half Life Alyx was first announced. Yes, you can beat Half Life Alyx without VR. I'm going to leave a few helpful links in the description of this video for those of you who want to play through Alyx without a headset. Again, it's been a while since I recorded the footage for this playthrough, but I can only assume the mod has gotten better in the meantime, fixing any issues I might have encountered or forgot. Thanks for watching this video. I gave up on maintaining my YouTube algorithm many moons ago, but I gotta say it was fun revisiting this format. If this video gets more attention, I might try more VR challenges since I've finally found a new VR headset I like. But do me a favor, if you're still here, comment something completely unrelated, just to fuck with people who click on this video for the first time.
We got work to do.
Okay, bye. I took a moment to... I think the image of the vault crashing to the earth should be just as synonymous...
There is a loud-ass truck on my street.
Fuck.